It's 7:02 on Tuesday, August 18th, and I'll call to order this meeting of the Lathrup Village Planning Commission. I'll take a roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Okay, Commissioner Nordmo,
Present.
Chair Hillman,
Present.
Vice Chair Robinson,
Present.
Commissioner Brewer,
Present.
Commissioner Hammond,
Present.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Abraham.
We did receive notice from Commissioner Abraham that she'll be absent today, so I'll take a motion to approve her absence, please.
I make the motion to approve the absence for Commissioner Abraham.
Any
So
second?
moved.
All right. The motion has been made to excuse the absence of Commissioner Abraham as well as seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing no opposition, we'll excuse Commissioner Abraham's absence. If you're willing and able, please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have all the commissioners received a copy of tonight's agenda packet?
Yes.
All right. Any discussion about its approval, or I'll seek a motion to approve the agenda this evening?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
A motion's been made to approve the agenda and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Agenda item 5, public comment for items on the agenda. Keep in mind there'll be a second public comment section later on in the meeting for you to discuss matters beyond the agenda, but please reserve your comments in this public comment section for items on the agenda. If anybody would like to address the podium, please state your name, and you've got 3 minutes.
Diane Anderson, and I'm just here for a requiem tonight. Because if you go ahead with this lunacy of manufacturing in an upper middle class neighborhood, a bedroom community is the final nail in the coffin of the place I love and have 75 years worth of ties to. It's bad enough that Southfield Road has been trashed. Restaurants that never should be there, pizza parlors, cheap places that make the community itself look cheap. But the thought that you would have manufacturing is beyond the pale. Lathrup is not Birmingham, it's not Royal Oak, it's not Southfield, and anybody that tells you you should compare Lathrup with those places doesn't know what they're talking about. Because those places are cities with big business districts, they have a history much older than Lathrup's, and they have neighborhoods around them, but they weren't founded primarily to be bedrooms. They were founded, for example, Birmingham, to serve the farming community around it. Same with Royal Oak. Lathrup had but one purpose with its founding, a place where upper middle class people, business executives and their families could come at night. It would shut down because you had white collar businesses open during the day, and at night it was peaceful and calm. Your kids could go out and feel free to play because strangers weren't coming into your neighborhood. You didn't have chickens. You didn't have Airbnb. It's difficult for me to come to terms with what has happened to the place I love so much that my parents built the first house in after the war. But I do have to say that had we had a proper historical society rather than the takeover that took place, and it's now a private club that's anti-preservation, had we had a council that worked with Preservation Michigan and got those hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of grants that are available every year, you might have prevented the kind of debacle that's been going on, particularly since the beginning of the Garrett administration, where I believe, from my observation of 75 years, more harm was done to Lathrup by that administration than the previous 8 decades combined. So I'd think carefully about what you're going to do tonight, but I'm not even going to stay because I know what you're going to do. And it breaks my heart that this is the requiem, because tonight you're going to destroy what's left of what was once a beautiful, educated, cultured, upper middle class community that everyone was an equal citizen, because the ones around Southfield Road didn't have their quiet enjoyment destroyed by inappropriate development. So good night.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Jonathan Terra. I do have two suggestions vis-a-vis this particular proposal. I just want to make sure that we're properly prepared and have all of the information needed to help these businesses be successful. And what I'd like to know is, has the Planning Commission done recently or ever an electrical study? DTE can probably help you with that. In other words, what electrical capacity is available where? Okay. We probably have pretty significant, but we're not putting in any data centers. We don't, I don't think we have the capacity for that. The other thing is a fiber study. That may not be quite so easy. You may have to spend a few $100s. I'm aware of the fact that 696 has a major fiber, is a major fiber corridor in the area. But what we have outside of the AT&T service that's available to the public, to the residences here, it is useful. And I've done this sort of thing in another larger city, helped a landlord do a fiber study to show, what was available, how far, what the cost would be to bring fiber to big fiber to a particular location. And I think that's a useful thing to do. I think a few years ago, 5 years ago, it would have cost maybe $500 to do that. Because that's not so readily available public information, but DTE certainly should be able to work with you, as well as the consumer, telecom providers. So I want to make sure that you actually, look into these details and be able to provide them to these sort of businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. Is mic on? Good evening. My name is Ravan Dabish. I'm an owner-operator at Vintage Village Fine Wine here in Lathrup Village for over 30 years now. We're next door to the gas station attempting to transfer a liquor license. I'm here to formally express my opposition to the liquor license application. My concern is not with the existing business next door. My concern is specifically an addition of another liquor retailer immediately in the same parking lot, adjacent to us, less than 100 feet, door to door. From my entrance to his, the two businesses would be competing, highly competing with each other. The same customer base, the same city. We are a family-owned business and have been in Lathrup for 27 years now. We absolutely affect the community very well. We have a very one-on-one relationship with everybody. We know everybody. I invested a lot of money in this location between licensing, building, property, paid taxes years and years. Inventory, licensing, employment, payroll, everything. I believe the council should carefully consider whether adding another alcohol retailer at this location serves the best interests of the community. I also ask the council to carefully review the application proposed, hours, operation, security. We've invested a lot of time into perfecting our business. I respectfully ask the council to consider my objection and either deny the recommendation at the minimum or require applicant address these concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, we'll move along to agenda item 6. keeping in mind that there will be another public comment section upcoming in section 10. Approval of meeting minutes. Has everyone been able to review the meeting minutes as published in the agenda packet?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our regular July 21st meeting, please.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve our meeting minutes from our meeting on July 21st, 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the meeting minutes are approved. Agenda item 7, old business and tabled items. Zoning amendment, Artisan manufacturing. As a reminder, we reviewed a first pass at this zoning amendment at our July 21st meeting. So if you're interested in engaging on that topic, you can find it not only in the minutes, but also in the video of that meeting. But I understand our partners at Giffords-Webster have taken another stab at this proposed zoning amendment. So I'll turn it over to them to throw that off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Eric Peach with Giffords-Webster. As Chair Hillman indicated, last month was our first go-around with some proposed ordinance amendments dealing with artisan manufacturing. We had a spirited discussion about which direction we'd like to go. And so the current version of the memorandum that was included in your packet outlines some of those steps that we had gone through with the Planning Commission in July. So we tried our best to incorporate all of that discussion into the memo. Draw your attention to the second page, which includes some bulleted points that articulates the type of updates that we made. The first being to clarify the ambiguity between the light industrial and artisan manufacturing uses by further detailing the types of production methods, scale of distribution, and types of materials and products used. To adjust the use standards to encompass a broader array of artisan manufacturing operations, to propose a tiered approach to allowing artisan manufacturing as a permitted or special land use, and to update the parking requirements to align with the parking standards for other retail uses in the proposed districts, in addition to the previously required parking amount. So we recommend that the Planning Commission consider this language in the provided draft amendment, and then to hopefully get to the point of establishing a public hearing for September. But we understand that if there's more concerns or updates to consider, that we may still have time in our favor to further the conversation and push the public hearing to a later date. So we can jump right to the proposed language, starting with amendment of Article 2, the definitions. So I'll read the definition that's proposed aloud. For artisan manufacturing, this would be defined as a small-scale, low-impact establishment for the design, production, fabrication, assembly, repair, finishing, and packaging of custom, specialty, or limited-run products and component parts using limited or minimal production techniques and equipment. Such establishments integrate retail and/or education and are characterized by low volume production and a greater degree of craftsmanship, customization, design, or prototyping than light manufacturing. Typical artisan manufacturing products include, but are not limited to, furniture, textiles, clothing, jewelry, ceramics, wood products, metalwork, glass products, artwork, electronics, and specialty food and non-alcoholic beverage products. So our intention was to be more specific as it relates to the comparison between artisan manufacturing and light industrial, which, as we discussed last time, is a defined term within the ordinance. So we just wanted to make sure that we had enough detail within the definition to separate the two. And with that in mind, we also talked about, if you recall, whether or not to allow for artisan manufacturing to be a permitted by right use or to establish it in the ordinance as a special land use. And so as we considered the approach to that, we considered both. And so artisan manufacturing limited is the next term that's defined within section 2.2, which reads, an artisan manufacturing establishment where most of the building is dedicated to retail or education space and less than 50% of the gross floor area is dedicated to manufacturing. So if less than 50% of the gross floor area is dedicated to manufacturing, then this would be Artisan Manufacturing Limited, which would be allowed by right. But it's once the manufacturing area or the production area exceeds 50%, then it's written that a special land use application would be required. And so that leads us into the amendments proposed for Article 3. This lays out that we have identified the office district and the mixed-use district as the two existing districts where artisan manufacturing would be permissible. So the first one, section 3.1.5B and section 3.5.C, those are for the office use. And then the final two, section 3.18B and C, are for the mixed use. And as you can see, we would propose the limited artisan manufacturing as being by right, and when it's not limited artisan manufacturing, meaning the production area or manufacturing area exceeds 50% of the gross floor area, then that's where it would require a special land use application and a presentation to the Planning Commission for consideration of approvals.
Do you mind if I make a fine point really quickly? I think
Yes.
it's an edit more than anything.
Okay.
In the first, under amend Article 4, use standards to add a new standard, the second line there, artisan manufacturing may be permitted in office, commercial vehicular.
Mhm.
That's introduced a third zoning type that I don't think belongs there. I
Right,
think
that's
the
a
one we
typo.
mixed. Okay.
Yep, I
yeah.
just haven't gotten to that part
Yeah.
yet.
All right, so as a matter of editing, I think that one should be struck, but
Yes.
sorry to interrupt.
Yep, so for clarification, moving on to amendment of Article 4, use standards. The statement reads, artisan manufacturing may be permitted in the office, commercial vehicular, and mixed-use districts, subject to the following requirements. It's to be noted that commercial vehicular was left in and is a typo, and so that should be stricken and removed from that statement. So, artisan manufacturing, the use district subject to the following requirements may be permissible under 1, the scale and impacts of the use shall be consistent with other uses in the district. So this helps establish that it's not just any type of manufacturing, it's limited to the types of square footages that we see within the mixed use and office districts as currently established. Number 2, all production, fabrication, assembly, finishing, treatment, storage, and packaging activities shall occur entirely within an enclosed building. Number 3, no artisan manufacturing use or uses in a mixed-use building shall be permitted on a floor above a residential use. Number 4, all artisan manufacturing uses shall include a storefront for the sale of products produced on the premises and/or an educational or collaborative component such as workshops, classes, demonstrations, or shared workspaces. And this is just another point that helps to differentiate artisan manufacturing from light industrial. And then statements for number 5 and number 6. As you may recall, there was a standard that was heavily focused on coffee manufacturing, and it provided some nuisances within that statement. So it was asked that we extract those nuisances and incorporate them as more of a generalized approach. So 5 and 6 are the attempts at doing that. Number 5 reads, any equipment or process generating smoke, fumes, dust, particulate matter, odors, heat, or other airborne emissions shall be equipped with filtration, ventilation, afterburners, collectors, scrubbers, or equivalent mitigation measures as necessary to prevent such emissions from being detectable at a level constituting a nuisance beyond the property boundaries. And then number 6, machinery and equipment shall be operated in a manner that does not create excessive noise, vibration, glare, smoke, dust, odor, heat, or other impacts greater than ambient conditions that are discernible beyond the property boundaries. Number 7, the city may require additional mitigation measures if a manufacturing process is determined by the city administrator or their designee to create a nuisance or otherwise adversely impact surrounding properties. And then lastly, number 8, accessory storage and distribution activities shall remain subordinate to the on-site artisan manufacturing uses. Moving on to Article 5.
I did have one comment on Article
Yes.
4.
Yep.
Because we've created 2 classifications, artisanal manufacturing and artisanal manufacturing limited,
Mhm.
I think the use standard should reflect that they're applicable to both classifications.
Sure. So at the beginning to make that.
Yeah, just make the title,
Okay.
use standards, and then, I don't know if it's necessary to do individual references, individual references to artisan manufacturing slash,
Right.
or just
Limited.
the title. But I think it should be at least acknowledged that those standards apply to both.
Okay, yeah, point taken. So amend Article 5, the proposal to add the off-street parking standards. So we looked at retail as being 1 per 200 parking spaces, 1 parking space per 200 square feet of gross floor area. And what we're proposing is, because retail is incorporated into the manufacturing space, initially to propose that as being 1 parking space proposed for every 300 square feet of gross floor area for the retail or educational space, which is the portion of the facility that would face the street. And then in the back, one space for every 1,500 square feet of gross floor area for the production space. And that's certainly up for discussion if the Planning Commission feels that a different ratio is appropriate for that. And then lastly, Article 5 is the site development standards, nuisances prohibited. So we just wanted to call out that in addition to what we strive to establish as nuisances, again under 5 and 6 of Article 4, that there is reference to the established nuisance ordinance found in Chapter 46 of the General Code. And again, we can have more conversation on what nuisances are and how we can best protect the adjacent neighborhoods and the city overall. The Planning Commission also had asked us to do a side-by-side comparison for artisan manufacturing versus light industrial uses, and so we have a little bit of a presentation with some slides to show that side-by-side comparison to help facilitate more conversation today. So artisan manufacturing on the left, light industrial on the right. The idea is for artisan manufacturing to be defined and recognized within the ordinance to be more small-scale, custom, specialty production, emphasizing craftsmanship, design, prototyping, or creative fabrication, whereas light industrial has more of a higher volume production of finished goods, often intended for broader commercial distribution. For artisan manufacturing, these types of productions use hand tools or small-scale mechanical equipment rather than large industrial production systems, whereas light industrial tends to use automated or semi-automated machinery and equipment with human inputs and oversight. Artisan manufacturing is a public-facing retail educational or collaborative component that is required, and so that's what separates it from light industrial within the context of the mixed-use and office district zones and parcels, whereas light industrial may involve fabrication, assembly line processes, specialized industrial equipment, repair, or packaging. Just to clarify at this point, light industrial is, I believe, only permitted in the commercial vehicular district. So it's separated from artisan manufacturing in that sense, and we did touch upon that a little bit at the last meeting. But light industrial is not permitted in the same districts where artisan manufacturing would be. For artisan manufacturing, the size and impact consistent with other retail and office uses within the district. Again, this is a major focal point of establishing artisan manufacturing within the community, whereas light industrial operations are larger than typical retail or office uses, and that's why their current allowance is only within the commercial vehicular zoning district. Artisan manufacturing more closely aligns with the public-facing commercial activity, so the idea, again, is to take the Village Center district as more of the compact, pedestrian-friendly district, and having the mixed use extend beyond that. So that way, if you are incorporating artisan manufacturing, you're continuing the intent of the Village Center district, along with the mixed use district, to create more of a walkable, public-facing buildings and storefronts. Whereas that's not necessarily the intent to achieve with light industrial, which can include more warehousing, wholesaling, and more aligned with traditional manufacturing systems that are industrial in character.
I have a quick question
Yep.
about, just to make sure I'm clear on this. So the last bullets, you mentioned the Village Center district, which artisan manufacturing will not be authorized in that district, but you're saying because the office and mixed-use districts are adjacent to the Village Center, it would allow for kind of consistency of that.
Yep.
Not that the manufacturing is allowed in the Village Center district, but that it is more retail or customer service-facing focused services, businesses, and that these adjacent businesses and the adjacent districts would be consistent with that.
That's right.
what
Yeah,
you're
that's
after?
correct. Thanks for helping to clarify. So my intention was not to state or to indicate or imply that artisan manufacturing would be permissible within the Village Center district. It's not. My only intention of bringing that up was to say that if you looked at the zoning map, currently the mixed-use district extends from the Village Center district with a lot of the same characteristics for building, for physical buildings and infrastructure, and so it would just be to extend upon that intention within the mixed-use district, as well as the office districts, which are primarily along 12 Mile Road.
Yeah.
So, again, the only districts that would be allowing artisan manufacturing are mixed-use and office districts. Was there any other questions on the slide? The next one is just further, highlighting some areas of discussion. So with artisan manufacturing versus light industrial establishes some of these terms within its definition currently in the ordinance. So just to kind of get a sense for how they differ, and in terms of what type of products are being manufactured for artisan manufacturing, it's electronic goods, specialty food and non-alcoholic beverage production, printmaking, glass blowing, leather products, jewelry, apparel, and clothing, metalwork, handcrafted furniture, glass or ceramic production, and paper making. And so again, this is, per definition, would be more of a small-scale approach, more in fitting with the limitations of the square footages that these types of buildings would allow for. And again, that if any of the manufacturing was consisted of a floor area that's more than 50% of the retail area to sell or promote the goods, then it would go through the special land use application process, which would come before the Planning Commission for consideration of all of the criteria of a special land use application. Light industrial, just for comparison's sake, the heavier manufacturing of clothing, furniture, pharmaceuticals, hardware, toys, mechanical components, electric or electronic components, small vehicle assembly, computer software, packaged food and beverage, and electronics. And again, this is already established in the ordinance, and it's just presented to show a side-by-side comparison as we consider the different types of uses to be produced within the artisan manufacturing district. Yes, sir.
So where would a person operating like a 3D printer farm sit on there? Any thoughts?
I suppose it would be dependent on what is being 3D printed.
Say it was little like knickknacks, tchotchkes, toys, like hobbyist type projects.
Yeah.
That the person also expected to be able to sell for like display or something.
Yeah, and that would be acceptable, and these are just a list of
That feels like
types of,
artisan, but it sounds like it fit the definition more almost of like. and
like
that
toys.
seems like a problem to me.
Yeah,
I think that
let me use the mic before Jim yells at me again. So to give a little bit more context, let's look at two different types of 3D printers.
Yeah.
There's the desktop ones, which are literally fit on your desk, and then there's maybe the larger ones that a lot of people may think of where it takes up an entire room or maybe a corner of a room. The latter of that would probably fit under the light industrial because it requires more space and it requires more electricity and power. But what you're looking to do, it's all, the latter option would also make more and make bigger products. This one, what you're referring to would probably be the desktop printers. Those would be more applicable in a print farm. You can definitely fit those in a lot. They have a lot more utility in a lot of ways. You could technically say it would be under printmaking by definition, but it depends on how we define what printmaking is. But it would depend on the machine, and I think that's what we have to look for. If it's going to be a desktop machine, it would definitely fall under artisan manufacturing. And that's what a lot of 3D print farms use is the desktop printers.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my dad is running. He's got like 15 or 20 of them in his basement. And maybe he could, or somebody like him rather, could operate out of one of the areas and be able to sell the stuff that he's printing while he's also filling orders for custom parts and stuff.
Absolutely.
I do want to offer that clothing exists on both sides of this table here. And so I don't bring that up to point out a flaw in the diagram. I bring that up, I think, to make a broader point that, at least from my point of view, what defines artisanal manufacturing has less to do with what's being manufactured. Clothing can be artisanally produced, or it can be produced via light manufacturing. For me, it's more of a matter of scale and impact. And I think rather than exhaust ourselves trying to figure out what type of products could be produced by way of this type or that type of manufacturing, the focus should be more squarely upon the impact in the scale of that manufacturing.
That's right.
And
That
how do
makes
you
a lot of
and how
sense.
do you define that?
Was it clear to you that your question was addressed within the changes that were proposed?
I haven't offered my broad feedback yet. I like this version much better. To the point I just made, one of my reservations about this version as drafted is the final sentence of the first paragraph, where we start elaborating on the typical artisan manufacturing products include but are not limited to, because I'm back at my original point, which is sure, furniture can be artisanal, but I'm pretty sure that Gardner White isn't producing its furniture by way of artisanal manufacturing. And so to be specific about what types of products are made by way of, it doesn't, something's not computing for me. It should be more focused on scale and impact than type of
I think
thing
that
being
there's an
produced.
attempt in the first sentence in that paragraph.
Yes.
But it's not specific enough, right? It's small scale. What does that mean? Low impact. What's considered low impact versus medium versus high impact? So I think we just need to be a little bit more explicit
Sure.
with, and I'm not sure if that's based on like production volumes or,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the measurement would be, but we need to try and figure out some way to be more explicit with the measurements.
Sure.
And
And
to
I
your-
think that was the intent originally, and not to get too in the weeds with the types of products being produced. I think that's kind of a self-correcting type of conversation as it relates to the nuisances that are strive to be outlined. That kind of keeps the training wheels on. So I think by having a strong definition to further pinpoint what the restrictions would be within the definition is the way to go. But if we need to kind of hash out those details, then that's something that we can try and strive for tonight.
And I think to your point, Tim, the not limited to, it sort of leaves the door open. You identify in the first sentence, as you stated, what these items are, but not limited to. So it's either or is it and or either or? that's one of the things I think that needs to be ferreted out.
Well, and I know that there was a lot of focus last meeting on establishing what we don't want as uses within this ordinance. And so that was kind of the challenge a little bit with establishing, what artisan manufacturing could entail. And so by listing those types of products being produced, that the challenge in doing that is you list some, but you can't include everything, right? So, so I understand that what we need to figure out is how to be more detailed in saying that, and I don't know if it's still the Planning Commission's preference to include items that you don't want to see within this definition, and we can certainly entertain that too.
Well, let me talk through an example. Say Mr. Bernini comes to town and rents space for the purpose of creating sculptures for individuals in special order. And he does it himself. I'm sure that would fit, right? Working with marble and low-speed machines, not too noisy. If his neighbor used similar space but is doing sort of mass production of lawn ornaments modeled on Mr. Bernini's designs, that would probably be considered manufacturing and not acceptable, right? Suppose now Mr. Bernini has a commission from a business, an international business that is opening up a new facility and new headquarters in Detroit, and they want half dozen of these masterpieces showing how they wish to support and be identified with support of the arts. And so he has several apprentices working with him on these additional pieces of sculpture, and they're all magnificent. Is it a matter of production?
I think we would have to do a vetting through, how much, well, first of all, if the application was submitted for artisan manufacturing use, then we would have to determine whether or not the manufacturing space is above the 50% of the gross floor area, which would then indicate that it requires Planning Commission approval to meet all of the criteria for a special land use. And to have all the plans submitted to indicate that it falls under the definition for artisan manufacturing. And that's what we're trying to do with this definition, to pinpoint the specificity of, the extent to which manufacturing is proposed to occur within a specific use.
I suppose part of the issue would be the size of his floor. This floor has room for 20 assistants, and he's the master sculptor.
Right. So if there's indication that what's being proposed is above and beyond artisan manufacturing, then that by definition within the ordinance would lean towards light industry, light industrial, which would be allowed or permissible by application in the commercial vehicular district.
Commissioner Normal brought up the size of this theoretical marble guy's floor.
I hear he does great work.
I heard so too. That's actually, my mind is stuck on size. So this 50% thing, 49% of 10,000 square feet is greater than 51% of 1,000 square feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to allow one administratively and require special land use approval for the other is to allow by administrative right the much larger of the two entities. So I'm not sure the 50% thing works, in my opinion. I might prefer a version of this that simply defines scale and impact better, and then up for discussion, it all qualifies, or it all comes before us by way of special land use to hash out whether or not we agree the intended manufacturing does qualify as artisan or not. But simply using 59 versus 41, or 51 versus 49% as the measure, I think falls apart when you start considering the different sizes of different buildings.
And Commissioners, Nordmo's hypothetical, if it was approved as a special land use and you have that special land use document and the use changes from what has been approved, then that would be a basis for bringing the applicant back to show cause why they've changed from what the approved use. So City Council would have the ability to rein that expansion in if it was a use permitted by special land use.
So the approval would depend on the volume of business. He gets a contract from a billionaire in the area for his home. And that may not go over compared to if I just ask for
Well, I think
one masterpiece.
if you transition from low volume to a high volume, then you, as Eric has indicated, you're no longer artisanal manufacturing, you're now light industrial. And, you know, you're no longer operating within your approved special land use. If you're operating a light industrial facility as, with approval for an artisanal manufacturing facility, that's where council could come in and either revoke that special land use approval or require them to come in compliance.
And how difficult is it to revoke?
To revoke a special land use, it's just a vote of city council. So the procedure would be, notice would be sent to the special land use holder that they were operating in violation. It would be set for what's called the show cause hearing, so the applicant would have, or the property owner would have an opportunity to come in, make their case that they are not in violation. And if city council found that they were in violation, they could revoke that at that meeting, at that hearing, so.
And I think to have the conversation further about whether or not to consider by right or by special land use is a discussion we can continue to have tonight. What was established within the draft was, because we heard feedback from both sides from the Planning Commission last time, this was one way to incorporate both. But if you're not comfortable with that, then we can talk through some of those details and make a determination on whether the Planning Commission is comfortable with by right, or if moving forward with these first steps to go by way of a special land use. There's just a few other slides left in what I have here, if it'll advance. There we go. How does the ordinance distinguish the two? And again, this might help kind of further the conversation that whether or not something is artisanal manufacturing or light industrial, we'd be looking at the process of how the machinery is used and the types of machinery used, the quantities, scale, distribution of the product, the number of employees, materials that are used or produced, the applicable laws, that being the Michigan Cottage Food Law, which, for example, is established to allow for like prepared food to be sold without a license. So if you bake brownies and you want to sell them from your home, that would be an applicable law that could be taken into consideration with this discussion. The venue generated or forecast, and then other similar factors. So again, these would be just some of the items that we can take into consideration when determining, what's artisan manufacturing versus what would be considered light industrial. And again, this is just explaining that our approach as of tonight would be to state that when the permitted use of the manufacturing space comprises less than 50% of the gross floor area, it's permitted by right, and then special land use when the manufacturing space comprises greater than 50% of the total gross floor area. And then these are just there for your reference. So when we talk about what are the criteria for approving a special land use, so let's say that the Planning Commission tonight says that, well, we want all artisan manufacturing applications to be a special land use application. Then what happens is, upon submittal of the special land use application, we would review and prepare the application to come before the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission must find the following 8 criteria. And so these are, to some extent, baked into the draft ordinance that we have presented for you tonight as it is. So it's just kind of more of a protection mechanism for the Planning Commission to, instead of the application going for administrative approval, it'd be for the Planning Commission to take action to find these standards or criteria are being met as a special land use. And so if the Planning Commission were to approve a special land use for an artisan manufacturing business, it's done by way of a public hearing. So the public has an opportunity to speak and express concerns or support, and then the Planning Commission will either make changes or adjustments or conditions of approval, but will recommend to the City Council for final approval. So it's a multi-stepped process that's undertaken. Given these guidelines that are established here, I won't read through them, but they are within the ordinance and is what makes a special land use a unique process within the ordinance. So lastly, these are just a few photo examples of some artisan manufacturing educational and shared workspaces that we've come across. So in Clawson, there's the Ofima Farms and Juicery, which is where the product is grown and distributed to the public by way of their facilities in Clawson. And then Epiphany Glass Manufacturing in Pontiac. And then there was an opportunity to visit a makerspace district in Knoxville, Tennessee earlier this year. So these are just some photos showing some of the existing facilities down in Tennessee. And then lastly, I believe this is that same area within Knoxville showing, pieces of art shown on the wall there, where you can scan a barcode to buy local art that's being displayed within that particular space. So that's all I have in terms of the presentation, and I believe everything was discussed within the proposed amendment, and that opens the door for discussion on how we want to proceed on whether or not we get to the point today of establishing a public hearing for September or not, but that's to your discretion. So I'm happy to answer any questions or continue on the conversation with you as best I can.
I suggest before we talk about the language itself, if we can all get on the same page about procedure moving forward. So maybe Attorney Baker can help me with this, and I know Eric alluded to it already. What could possibly happen tonight is somebody motions and seconds, and then we vote to have a public hearing on this matter come September. And it's only after conducting that public hearing that we would vote to either recommend this or not to council for ultimate approval.
That's
Either
correct.
way, this is not becoming the law of the land by way of any action taken here tonight.
Correct, yeah, you could schedule the public hearing tonight and review, provide your comments and review a new draft at the public hearing night. Again, just because you have the public hearing set and you review it, that doesn't mean you have to accept what's presented that evening. You can still make additional changes to it.
Okay. Similarly, because I assume we'll discuss to some extent how we want to engage special land use. In the event special land use is part of this, somebody applying for that would need to seek our recommendation first, and then that recommendation would go to council that would ultimately rubber stamp or not the special land use.
Correct.
This commission is not making that final call.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Is that clear to everybody?
So what you're saying is, we vote to make a recommendation or not, that then is handed off to city council? Is our yes and our no handed off to them and they can go either way, or do they only see stuff that we first vote yes on?
No, your yes or no gets transmitted to them. You're also conducting the public hearing. All special land use require a public hearing. So you're conducting the public hearing, and then you're making a recommendation, either for or against, and city council can choose to accept that recommendation or reject it.
So we're actually not gatekeeping either way, no matter what our recommendation is.
No, you're doing the legwork, the fact finding for
Sure.
city council.
Okay, thank you.
But ultimately, the decision we render is not made official by us. It's ultimately
only a
accepted by or
recommendation.
rejected by the council. Okay. So we're clear on procedure. All right, let's talk about the language, if you don't mind. I already expressed my first concern, which is this 50% thing. I just don't think it shakes out when we're thinking about spaces of varying sizes. So I already led with mine. Anybody else want to weigh in on any specifics in the language as proposed?
During the last meeting, I suggested that, at least as a starting point, that we require all artisan manufacturing to be special land use. Provides us with a mechanism to do this due diligence and fact-finding that was just mentioned. And an opportunity to kind of figure out, all right, is it for certain applications, is this overbearing, is it too much? It does run the risk of causing some potential tenants to shy away from coming to the city because a special land use procedure requires effort and cost, right? So there is a risk of that. But I just want to bring that back up again, that suggestion. What I'm thinking is that over time, doing a few special land uses, we'll figure out, like, are we approving all these things because they're so low impact that it really doesn't, it's too egregious of a process. And so maybe, therefore, we can use that information to determine a better definition of what should constitute a special land use that's not just the 50% cutoff in terms of the use of the space. So, just a suggestion.
So on the other hand, right, if we write that they're all special land use, then they all have to go to hearing, and we get no applicants in 3 years, we'd just probably want to revisit this again anyways, right? Presumably? Because the goal isn't to get no applicants. The goal is to create a vehicle for new businesses.
Yeah, I would imagine we would have to find out from the Community and Economic Development Coordinator, like, are you getting applications or inquiries, and then telling them what our process is, and they're like, no, thank you, right? Then we would know that. Or
Right.
if you're not getting any applications at all, regardless of what the ordinance
Do you have a
says.
perspective on this?
I can tell you right now, after a meeting with the Small Business Administration today, where they gave a conference down in the Farmington Public Library, we talked to, well, I was the one that was present for that. I spoke to 3 small-scale manufacturers there and 1 representative with Project Diamond, who's an Automation Alley program that provides 3D printing and services for small-scale manufacturers in Michigan. They're now expanding beyond Southeast Michigan and throughout the state. As of today, we have interest from 10 companies or producers who want to move into Lathrup Village, 5 of which are ready to move in now. 2 of which are actually, one lives in Lathrup, is looking more for a shared use space. One is in Southfield and would actually not be opposed to be the one who provides that shared use space. But there is interest, and the interest is growing. The news is getting out there that this program, this recast program that we're doing is, fast in motion. So you will see in very quick succession, companies and businesses and people who are interested in coming in.
Is there concern that a special land use approach would dampen that somehow?
I think a lot of them, and being entirely fair to them, they don't know the process. Now, Janet and I would guide them as well as we can, and we can expedite the process as much as we can. But the earliest that we can go with that would be 45 days if we do a special land use program.
So-
It may dampen their spirits, but I think in some cases they'd actually be they'd actually want to take that step back and maybe reassess to see if this is something that would work for them. But if we do that, we do run the risk of losing them if it becomes longer than 45 days.
Assuming the cadence of our meetings don't change perhaps, because there was some discussion at our last meeting, and I think this pertains to more than just the discussion we're having on this topic. It also pertains to the discussion we'll have next about the special land use application that we're looking at. So not to digress, but we'll look at a special land use application on our next agenda item. And should we approve it, they still must wait a month or 29 days or whatever it is for council to meet again. So there's something about this cadence as it relates to special land use approval that isn't working kind of at large. So if we, I just feel that way in general, I suppose. So if we committed to reconsidering our meeting cadence, perhaps for the 2027 calendar year, to position our meetings a week ahead of council meetings, for example, do you think that would resolve some of your concerns about
It would
timing?
definitely resolve my concerns.
Okay.
'Cause-
Do you think waiting until setting the 2027 schedule is that egregious? Is this something that has to change now, or is this something that can wait a few months?
We can talk about it at the next month's meeting,
Okay.
because this month's obviously as a loaded docket, and I don't want to make us stay here any longer than we have to. But I think, because we're still having interviews. I have 5 more interviews scheduled to do some information gathering from these makers. I think once we settle down with them and get an idea of how soon they're interested in moving in,
Sure.
then I can give you a better answer to that.
And
Just keep in mind that this problem with the timing of planning commission meetings and city council meetings also affects the approval or rejection of the ordinance.
Yes.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
I mean, that's gonna slow down by 45 days at a minimum.
Yep.
Right, so you're now talking about, like, we're in August, right, so this is probably October at the soonest when this would go into effect, and so you wouldn't really be able to approve artisan manufacturing businesses until then anyway, and if you wait until January, like, is 2 months gonna make a huge impact? Or is it negligible?
That might be negligible at this stage. Again, it's too early to tell because we don't, the companies that we've talked to and the people that we've talked to so far they're already in the area, they're kind of hemming and hawing at the idea, and they're interested, but.
They're not committed.
Right, it's not a full send, full commit kind of deal yet. I think a lot of the ones that we're gonna have later this week and next week, they definitely gave me the idea of, no, I'm ready to go today. One was very high energy and one was,
Which we're not ready to go because we don't even have
yeah,
an ordinance.
correct.
so do they, when you speak to them, do they have their business proposals already in hand? Like when you interview them?
Not yet.
So it's gonna take them 45 days to
Correct.
plan out. So I don't understand, like, if 45 days is our process, and just by what you were saying, they technically don't know what our process is. I don't see why we couldn't bring them all before us and properly vet them, just to make sure that, to your point, the types of businesses that we don't want to come in with small manufacturing. Art is art, but then sometimes art is art, you know what I'm saying?
To be clear, it sounds like you're sharing Commissioner Hammond's preference for special land use approval.
I would love to be able to look at them. I don't want to extend our meeting.
What do you mean?
But at the same time, I really do think us being able to look at, each individual, and then it gives us an opportunity to know the partners that we're bringing into the community, and if there's something else that we can do to be better partners to assist them.
Sure. Or to Commissioner Hammond's point, to better refine the language
Yeah.
in real time. Please.
So if I read between the lines on all this, it sounds like we don't feel that well equipped to set up clear language that we trust to make the decision for us on the level of policy, which is why we want to have our hand on the process through the form of hearings. And so I guess in that case, my question is, how soon would we know whether we were losing all candidates? Okay, like in a year, would you be able to come back to us and say, hey,
Sooner
you
than
didn't
that.
get, yeah, so you didn't get any applications because everybody looked at the fact that they were gonna have to do hearing and went somewhere else. And then you'd be able to come back to us and say, here are some things that walked away from us that I really think, you know, would have been perfect for us. And we can say, yeah, that sounds good. What do we have to write next to make those kinds? So like, that's the other side is if we don't get any applicants, you're still talking to people and you'd be able to say, hey, this is the ones that you're let go that would have been perfect for you and we can try again whether we get applicants or not.
I think I'd actually be able to tell you well sooner than a year out.
Great.
Because theoretically, as Jason pointed out, if we're not able to approve this until October, we're not done with the recast program until November anyway. So by that point, we probably won't be bringing in any of these companies until after November. And then let's be honest, is anyone moving in during the holidays? No, they're not. So by, say, January, maybe February, people will be in line, they'll have their action plans, we'll have our action plans. So by February, if we are not getting any feedback, if we're now getting ghosted, if, you know, these companies were interested, but now, I have to go through possibly so many days. you know.
Hearing, blah, blah, blah.
Right, so hopefully by January or February, we'd be able to tell you if the fire that we were working with has now died away.
So as long as we're willing to revisit the topic in February,
Yep,
then we can pivot again.
yes.
Have we reached out to other communities that have artisan manufacturing ordinances about any definitions that they have around special land use
Three.
requirements?
So I've talked to Knoxville. They were helpful with what, you know, they actually were the basis for what this ordinance was originally based off of. Earlier today, I spoke to Farmington Hills, their CED director, and she gave me some insight as to what they were doing with their ordinance. Theirs is not as in-depth as ours is, to their credit. And then another one, admittedly, I reached out to them, they did not get back to me, but by golly, I tried. It was a city out in Montana, of all places. They were kind of, I think they were ranked in the top 3 for downtown artisan manufacturing, and I never got feedback from them. But I did get feedback from Knoxville, and I did get feedback from Farmington Hills.
Do any of the cities that Giffords Webster is working with, other cities? None of them are doing
Not-
ordinances like this?
Not like this, to this extent yet, no.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
To that point, though, a lot of other communities.
Does Clausen, right? Clausen's an example in the pictures, right?
But I don't, I don't know if they have an ordinance established.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
I
they're
can
just,
look into
they're
that.
managing it under their standard ordinances
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
retail and
Right.
manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that might be it too, is that other communities may already have a manufacturing ordinance.
Yes.
Ours is just straight up light manufacturing, and this isn't to that extent, so, you know, that.
Or
they
maybe
may
they're
already
satisfied
have
that light manufacturing ordinance language is good enough for these smaller
Yeah.
manufacturing, for their cities, because I mean, a city like Clausen has more industrial area, it's bigger, like, it's different than us.
Correct.
Commissioner Brewer, I'm curious, I think you used a phrase like, if I'm reading between the lines or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you were expressing your own point of view or just summarizing other ones.
Both,
Do you have
really.
Do you have an inclination about special land use versus administrative approval?
What I have is a sense that I don't even now feel like I know enough to be sure that the thing on the table before us will catch all of the false positives.
I
Right.
agree.
And so if that's the concern and we're more concerned about moving too fast than moving too slow, that's like a value judgment, right? That the community has to make. And if that's basically where our head's at, I don't actually have an opinion on fast or slow, especially now that I know that in February, we'll know if we're getting ghosted. And we can do something about that, and that could be separate.
If you like also, since we're meeting with her next week already, we can reach out to Alana Prouse of the Recast Cities program and see if she has an opinion or any recommendation to or from special land use or the other option, administrative approval, whatever it is, and kind of get her input and see if that, not to sway you one way or another, but, you know, she's done this to hundreds of communities so far. You know, what she has seen in terms of success, what works, what doesn't work.
Sure.
Clausen utilizes a special land use for their artisan manufacturing galleries.
For all, okay.
So they do the hearing system?
Yep.
Okay. And that hasn't stopped them from getting at least
What
one?
you have in the picture.
At least
Yeah.
one? Okay.
I share the inclination I'm hearing from the right of me for many of the same reasons. I also feel like we owe it to this project at large to be considerate of the cadence of our meeting and how it falls on the calendar against other meetings, and we should probably change that, not only to accommodate this, but to accommodate other special land use requests that really don't have to wait 45 days or whatever just because we made a calendar decision the way that we did.
Is there any
So,
reason to wait until 2027?
That's a
Can
good
we amend our
question.
calendar sooner?
Are we bound to the
Or you
cadence?
could amend
we've-
your meeting dates.
Okay.
Whatever we want, yeah.
Well, of course, we don't know our schedules yet, so there may be a commissioner up here at home tonight that could not amend it, so we should put that in consideration too. But perhaps, perhaps as a discussion point for our next meeting, we can talk about, we can include an agenda item about the cadence of our meetings and suggest perhaps the Tuesday between the Mondays on which our council meets. As a reminder, our council meets for a study session on the first Monday of every month, and for a study session and a general meeting on the third Monday of every month. And we're right behind them on the third Tuesday. So that's why they have to wait so long to get their full freight special land use approval or to consider things like zoning ordinance changes because of that timing. So perhaps if we wedged ourselves in between, we could alleviate some of that timeline pressure, as well as perhaps even improve our attendance from the peanut gallery if people don't want to sit through council meetings all night on one Monday and then us on Tuesday. So I
And it
think-
would be beneficial, I think, to have the study session, the council study session that week before. And then we could weigh in and sort of go over some of those items during our meeting as well.
Sure.
You know, sort of bat those around before we get to the next meeting, because don't they have to weigh in or make a vote or take a vote or get the weigh in or?
Council is only voting on items at their second, during their formal meeting, which is the third Monday. So they would have a study session in advance of that third Monday, immediately before that third Monday meeting, to have general discussion about items like some that we may present to them on their agenda.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, if we wanted to send them a memo, in the interim, they meet the first Monday at their study session, if we were in on the second Tuesday, and then we saw what was on their agenda for the study session, and we could say, hey, we know you're trying to do this, and
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Nordmo, do you have a position on the special land use of it all? No? Okay. It sounds like the majority is in favor of reviewing all of these by way of special land use, at least for the near future. So I think to my point about the 5940, I can't say that right. 5149 of it all. This distinction between what rises to the occasion of special land use versus what doesn't kind of goes away in the same fell swoop.
Is there a place to make a note of that concern for when we do try to write new ordinance later? So that you don't have to think of it all over again in February?
The 5149 thing?
Or like any nuances that we think of now? Like where are we keeping all of that?
Where are we retaining our,
Just up here?
I guess so. Well,
We can keep
Madam
records of
Clerk is
that.
feverishly typing notes, so I'm sure she's getting it down well.
But does the 5149 actually go away? I know if we're vetting and we have someone that comes in that's the 49 and that they start off that way, and again,
Well, the purpose of the 50% cutoff was to try and create a delineation for by right
Yeah.
use or special
I
land
get
use.
that.
And if we're
Mhm.
doing special land use for everything, then you don't need that language.
okay, yeah.
Do we need, it perhaps is already here and I'm forgetting about it, do we need definitions around how much of the floor space needs to be dedicated to retail and/or education? I know that as written, it requires it to be part of it, but I don't know that we've defined how much of it needs to be that. Or
Is
if that's
figuring
even
that out
necessary.
just literally for the purpose of knowing what questions we want to ask them when they come before us with a plan, or?
It's a good question. I'm thinking out loud.
I guess I'm not, now I'm having trouble understanding, like, okay, what's the ordinance that we are creating? Like, what exactly, if we're just gonna have a hearing, what are we trying to write right now, I guess, is my next question.
Sure.
But you still want to put your standards and define your, what the use is, so that when you are evaluating a special land use application, you have something to go off of. Are they meeting our criteria? So it's not a wasted exercise to put the details in now and have them in the ordinance.
Okay.
And then in the event you do change the approval process later on down the road, you don't necessarily have to rewrite the whole ordinance. You're just changing it from a special land use approval to a by right use.
And things like the square footage is part of the parking requirements. Parking is always a challenge in the city with every single development. So it's important that we have some measurement to go off of for parking requirements.
If you know, to the Chairman Hillman's point, I mean, if you wanted to have a minimum floor space requirement, put it in your ordinance. If you don't want to have a minimum floor space requirement for education, or don't put it in there. Just require that, you could require it, but not define what it is, so someone could put, a table in the corner and that meets the, but if you want it to be more of a dedicated space, then, that you would include that detail in your ordinance.
And to me, that's where the 5149 comes in. Because how much of the space is gonna be retail versus the actual manufacturing, educational, display.
Yeah, I think we're thinking about the same thing. I'm just trying to figure out what it ought to be.
So
Yeah.
if you're like a littler business, it sounds like you could solve your concern with a minimum like size, right?
Sure.
So that if it's a really big building, it needs to be, I don't know, a certain, not a percentage, but like a certain amount of square footage. If it's a small building, it needs to be a certain percentage kind of thing.
To that point, I'm still stuck on my first. If it's I don't think we have many 10,000 square foot buildings to worry about. But if the larger the building, are we really requiring them to have a tremendously sized? To your point, like it seems like we could define something that's beyond, that does not include percentages. I'll put it that way. Madam Clerk was.
So, in Southfield, there's a lot of industrial parks, and they make different artisan products in these industrial parks. And that also reminds me of here, where some buildings here are not as open with what they're doing in their buildings. So with me dealing with business licenses, and it's a retail space, and we have someone, for example, that's making T-shirts, in a way, is that a artisan or not, he's, stamping the logos on the T-shirts, and he's already in here. How is this good for the landlords? How are we gonna let them know that they are going to need to tell prospective tenants to come before you for this, and how are they going to feel as they're trying to rent out their places?
Well, they would communicate with us directly, Janet and I. So it would start with the business owner or the property owner reaching out on behalf of the business owner, and we would communicate that entire way with them. So we would kind of be the middleman about that, and the shepherd for that.
I think what the clerk is saying is you have certain businesses right now that skip the city step. They just fill the space.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, it's a compliance thing. So if you find someone that's operating without an approval, they can be cited and shut down and then required to come through the approval process.
Right. If they're already operating, then yes, absolutely. And, to that point as well, Ms. Robinson, regarding the education space, I'm a little cautious when we talk about percentage of the space being used for education specifically, only because they're not going to be able to educate all the time. You know, especially during the school year, it's going to be hard to get someone in during normal operating hours. You'd have to bring them in after school, and let's be honest, the kid's got a lot going on.
Right.
So instead of maybe compelling them to have a space percentage-wise for education, maybe if they tell us, like a shared use space or a co-working space would bring in any amount of people of any age to do a workshop, an educational event, or whatever. Instead of compelling them for percentages, maybe they would have to abide by a certain amount of time in a year that they would have to do educational events per, if they wanted to be a very specific, you know, like shared use specifically. Maybe they could do something like that, and that way we alleviate a possible percentage of floor space, and, you know, we can make it something else. That would be a little tough for us to kind of gauge, but I'm sure they would communicate with us as a DDA. We would promote their events, so we'd be able to kind of track how often they're doing it.
Okay. One other note. I'm having an old lady moment. Give me a second. When it comes with regard to the landlords and bypassing the process, is it fair for them to go through a review, maybe a biannual review, tenant review, or something of that nature to say, hey, you know, we're just following up to make sure you got all the proper licensing or whatever the case may be for your building and the establishments in your building? And
That's currently part of our business licensing process, is
Okay.
to get a list of the tenants and what they're utilizing the space for as part of the licensing process. So
But-
that's
but-
something that would get flagged.
So, but we get pushed back on that. Remember, there's a couple of buildings that we still don't have any communication, and there's often lots of cars in front of them. And so we also have, when we did door-to-door walks, people like literally jumping up in my face, like, I already talked to my landlord, like they're angry about us even discussing it, because our big sister city, Southfield, doesn't require business licenses for a lot of businesses. So it is a tug of war, it's an uphill battle to just get that done. And so that's kind of why I brought it up, where love all of these ideas, but want to make sure that we can help our business. We just want businesses to be there. We want these buildings to have people there. We want them to follow their dreams, have good experiences, give people in our community somewhere to go, somewhere to shop, something to stroll, if you can, stroll down Southfield Road here and go shopping to, you know, be a designated spot. I think this will really bring people in, but we do have a really strong adversarial relationship in some ways, where they think that I paid my lease, I don't have to pay you anything, and they have left or pay late or don't want to pay, or they're struggling. So it's a lot to that already.
Which is why we're doing the recruiting now and we're communicating with the property owners now. That way we're able to get the ones who are playing ball and will play ball in the future. And a lot of the businesses who want to be here will want to play ball. So we'll be able to get them a good fit with property owners who are already in good standing with us. And we'll be able to keep up that communication and make sure that they're staying in compliance with our ordinances, getting them certificate of occupancy, getting them business licenses, making sure they re-up that every year. And staying with that. So there's a benefit to us doing this where we're so hands-on that we're able to kind of mitigate this and cut it off at the pass to prevent issues. And we wouldn't guide them into those buildings that we're currently having issues with. We want to reward the ones who are still in good standing with us and want to maintain that good standing with us.
Absolutely.
And we do have those. We want to reward the people that,
Yep.
yes.
And I can just add to that too. So on the DDA side, we have what's called a Booms Tracker, which is through the National Main Street Program. And with that, it does ask those questions as far as who's using what space, what the size of the space is, conditions of the building, doing photographic of the front, sides, back, and establishing those relationships. And so you and I had this conversation earlier today as we're going through that process, checking in with the businesses who have those business license and those that don't. Here's the process that you need to do. So just, again, kind of coming behind and kind of giving that direction and support that maybe some of the businesses just missed out on, or hopefully change some attitudes and be able to get them in compliance.
What kind of tracker?
So it's Booms is the name of the program, and it is through the DDA with the National Main Street Program. It is free to use. It's a GIS-based program, and it allows you to keep an inventory of all your businesses within your DDA. And in doing so, we would take photos and upload those into the system, contact information, uses of what's happening on each of the floors, the size of the locations as well. And it just gives a good repository of information. You can also include historical photos. Oakland County, when you're up and going within a community, Oakland County, if they have any historical information, they also add that to the records.
So it's like software that you use?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And to cut off the YouTube transcripts before they can really go off, it's Booms, BOOMS.
Yes.
Trackers.
And I found the website's an acronym. It stands for Building Opportunities on Main Street.
Thanks.
Okay. We do have another agenda item tonight, so is there any other discussion about the language itself?
One last thing about the language, is based on making the special land use as opposed to by right use. The definition of artisan manufacturing limited includes artisan manufacturing establishment where most of the building is dedicated to retail or education space and less than 50% of the gross floor area is dedicated to manufacturing. Do we still need that definition?
I think it only serves to push certain things to special land use and certain things to administrative approval, so I don't think the definition is
Yeah,
necessary.
that was the main intent behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so rip that out.
So, yeah, we
Okay.
can remove that.
My only second bit of feedback is small. There's a few instances where we use language like constituting a nuisance. I'm not a lawyer, but luckily we have one present tonight. I'm curious if that creates too much of like a subjective legal threshold or something, and if we can simply state that like, I wrote a version of this here, like, smoke, fumes, dust, particulate matter, odors, heat, or other airborne emissions shall be equipped, blah, 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 as necessary to prevent such emissions from being readily detectable beyond the property boundaries. It's essentially what's already there. It just removes that caveated statement of constituting a nuisance to essentially say anything beyond the property boundary that's detectable is not permissible.
The problem with that is then you get into what are acceptable discharge rates, what are, because you're never gonna get zero emission. So you're gonna have some, but it's, with the nuisance language, it requires two people basically to be offended by that odor. So if it's impacting more than one individual that in your community, then you can say, okay, now this, I don't know what the level is, but it's high enough that it's causing an impact on these adjacent residents. So it kind of takes out that.
Okay. It has the opposite effect of
Yeah.
what I thought it would have. Okay.
And if you're talking about food or anything of that nature, you're really gonna, you know.
It's, quite honestly, it's very difficult to prosecute a nuisance because it is so subjective. But from an enforcement standpoint, it's hard to, one, anticipate what type of emissions you're going to be monitoring for, and then two, we don't have the equipment necessary to monitor those types of emissions. It just becomes a more costly process.
But in section 4.22 of the draft ordinance, there is language that says the city may require additional mitigation measures if a manufacturing process is determined by the city administrator or their designee to create a nuisance. And then there's also language that talks about nuisances based on common laws of this state, right? So there's some precedent.
Yeah.
And there is some subjectivity, but I think that paragraph provides the city administrator, their designee, the authority to require some level of mitigation, which can be negotiated with.
And those are,
The business
those are prime areas where, when an applicant is coming for a special land use, that this body, city council, can say, all right, what is your anticipated emissions going to be? And if they say, well, I have this coal furnace, and then we can say, okay, well, that's gonna be an issue. So you're gonna have to
Right.
put additional, or if it's, on-site washing or something, then they might need to have an on-site treatment facility so that whatever they're producing is not going into our sanitary sewer system. So those are, those would be specific things and conditions that could be put into, based on an individual use.
Before the occupancy occurs.
Before the
right,
occupancy,
and before the business opens.
And then
But
again-
we do have some history of businesses that we've required them to make changes, right? That's resulted in other effects to their neighbors,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, we do have that history. So, no, this would be, again, something that you would want to hopefully anticipate beforehand and cut it off. But again, with one of the benefits of, if it is an issue and it becomes an issue, then because of the broad language of the ordinance, we could bring them in for a show cause and say, look, you're not supposed to be producing any sort of odors or whatever.
And here you are doing that.
Here's an issue,
Yeah.
so now we're going to require additional
Yeah.
remediation for that,
Right,
so.
yeah. I think we're pretty well protected from nuisances, even though it is subjective and based on those two pieces of language.
If you want to add more protection, though, something that we found at the Baldwin Library when Austin and I visited back in May, I want to say, was that they had a particulate tracker in facility. It was a mix of a Geiger counter and a particulate tracker, kind of told us what the localized parts per million was in this small space with all these machines going on. So it's not a very expensive machine. I mean, expensive is subject in the eye of a beholder. You can get one for about $115. We may not want to get one, but we may want to make it a standard in businesses that may have particulates in the air in their local area. So just food for thought, if you are interested, that might be something that we would be.
Yeah, it's worth
Maybe
considering. The
interested.
only concern I would have is if we enable the property owner to kind of self-measure,
Yeah.
then there's an opportunity for that property owner or that business owner to change the calibration on that device and
Correct.
not misreporting. I'd rather have an independent entity do that measurement.
Sure.
But it's great to know that exists and that it's not that expensive.
Any other discussion specific to the language as drafted? All right, so two big questions. First, we've been down this road before on topics like money services businesses and the solar ordinance, et cetera. Do we as a commission feel comfortable that we've given Giffords Webster enough to redraft this a third time, that it'll be ready for public hearing consumption? Or do we want a third pass at this before introducing it to a public hearing environment? Second big question is the same one essentially, but retargeted at Giffords Webster, if they feel comfortable with moving forward based on the discussion tonight. But let's start up here. How do you guys generally feel about that?
We also have a comment.
Understand as well that next month you may decide to change the meeting dates so that October you would be able to have the public hearing, and then it goes to city council. So one way or another, in October, it may still go to council for their review.
Assuming we
Assuming we change our meeting dates in the September meeting
Correct.
to occur not in the,
Not on the third,
Third
but on the
Tuesday,
second
but
Tuesday.
in September,
Yes.
I see.
we'd vote on it in September, it would be
Right.
effective in October.
So is it
But to
possible-
have a public hearing, isn't there a notice requirement? And aren't we beyond that?
15 days.
Oh, it's
But we-
15 days.
Yeah, but we could do the notice for the public hearing in September,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
If we agree that there's enough time to make the adjustments to the draft ordinance before the September meeting.
And is
Sure.
that something that can be distributed and we can review it and give feedback to Janet to,
Yes.
like a special review prior to?
Well, just be
The
an
next
an
meeting.
email probably from Janet to
Yeah.
all of us with the draft, updated draft language, and then you would provide written feedback via email.
I hear you all about the timing, but my primary concern is readiness. And
Yeah.
if we and Giffords Webster feel comfortable scheduling a public hearing based on the feedback we've given and they've received tonight. Any general feelings about that?
Are the hearings conducted at a different time than these meetings, I'm assuming?
No, so procedurally, it feels very much like an additional public comment.
So are you talking about the hearings for applicants? Or
No,
the
sorry,
hearings
but the
for
hearing for the whole
ordinance?
ordinance itself?
It's
an agenda item.
contained within the meeting. It's
Okay.
its own agenda item, and it's
Okay.
additional place for public to comment on this specific topic.
So the idea is that the public would show up, you'd read the ordinance or whatever, people would give comment, maybe we'd learn some stuff and be like, oh, this needs to change.
With the 15-day public notice, the ordinance would go out as it is.
In that draft at that
Right.
point in time.
Correct.
Right.
So they would be able to review it in the as,
Before coming to the thing,
Right.
so that's the key distinction you're making.
yes.
Then they'd come in and say, hey, this is my thinking, somebody might have thought of something we didn't,
Right.
Yep.
hopefully.
Okay.
And then
Well,
they would talk about it, and we'd be like, oh, hey, you need to go change this, we
Mhm.
agree or whatever.
Yeah.
And we have in the past approved ordinance language after a public hearing.
Right.
With the caveat of a change that was recommended by somebody that made a comment during the public hearing. or
I
the
see.
public reading.
So you're saying, like, we heard somebody give a comment, we're like, yeah, okay, good, we accept it if it includes this comment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, I didn't know that.
It makes it so we don't have to wait yet another month.
Right.
Right. So if you felt there wasn't enough information today to move forward with a public hearing because you think there's enough significant change to consider at the next meeting amongst the planning commission, then we could certainly do that. But the idea with the public hearing is to say, okay, we're at a point now where, we're close enough. We believe that what gets noticed, including the proposed language that we'll have updated, is satisfactory enough to consider during the public hearing, that we would anticipate minor changes, if any at all, then you can move forward with establishing the public hearing tonight.
So what he's asking you is, do you feel like you have what you need?
I would
And-
I would like to go through each section to just verify that I have a full understanding of what is expected to be updated.
Okay.
Where that's been determined. So for example, the definition. I'm not hearing any changes, but I just want to be sure. Other than just to remove the Artisan Manufacturing Limited definition. So is the definition of artisan manufacturing satisfactory to use as is for the draft that'll be noticed for the public hearing?
My preference would be to remove the examples from, i.e. the entire last sentence of the first paragraph, just because I don't think that artisan manufacturing is defined by what is produced, but rather defined by its scale and its impact. That would be my suggestion.
The way you just stated it, by the way, where you said, hey, it's not about what's being produced, but it's about scale and impact, right? Having both of those ideas contained in one sentence feels pretty useful. I don't remember whether that was actually, I know that it talks about scale and impact, but it doesn't ever, does it say it's not about what's being made?
No, it just says, the definition says a small-scale, low-impact establishment for the design, production, fabrication, assembly, repair, finishing, patching, custom,
Okay.
specialty, or limited run.
Sure.
So, but there's no
So
measurement.
I don't know if that was, I don't know if that would be useful to other people reading it, but having both of those ideas sitting next to each other felt useful to me.
The examples alongside.
When you said, hey, it's not about what we're making, it's about scale and impact, like literally saying it's not about X, it's about Y. That seemed helpful to me, but I don't know if that's helpful to other people or not.
Well, I can see both ends of the argument, and I just think of, to the point when we received the first application, and it's for a manufacturing of something that's not listed here, and it's something that's just not what I ever thought we would ever receive. And by having a list, kind of helps just keep some sort of guidance as to what's anticipated or what the intent of
The list of
artisan
examples, you
manufacturing is.
mean?
Pardon?
The list of examples, you mean?
Yeah, and it's not all inclusive. It's just there to provide some sort of reference for, someone who's not familiar with artisan manufacturing. This kind of paints a picture as to what types of things can be considered as that. So I look at it more of, when I do receive an application, what does the definition say, and is it all-inclusive to help guide my acceptance of that application for review to take to the planning commission as
So
a solid.
Do you feel like you understand his concern?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So then Hillman, would your concern be addressed if there was a sentence after the list of examples that said, but keep in mind, it's not what you're producing, it's scale and impact?
Essentially just drive the point home.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think it would change it a little bit if you changed it from typical artisan manufacturing products to an example of the type of artisan and use that as a guideline so that they would understand we're not expecting you to come in with something just extraordinary or out of the ordinary.
I think that would work, yeah.
Sure. Perhaps at the end, to Commissioner Gruber's point, who's building off my points, some type of additional statement so long as manufacturing said products is limited in scale and impact or something to that effect.
So restating that after?
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay,
state it at the beginning, state it at the end.
okay, okay.
Or you could say, example artisan manufacturing products include small scale, low impact,
There you go.
wood products, metalworking, glass products, artworks.
Right.
Okay. Eric, you said you had a few more down the list.
Just to go through each section, so for example, on Article 3, I didn't hear any concerns or changes. This is establishing where or what district artisan manufacturing would be permitted, office and mixed use, but that would be changed to be, we'd get rid of the limited, obviously, and it would be per special land use
Yep.
for each one of those districts. Article 4, the typo will be removed. And then I didn't hear any extensive concerns over the 8 criteria there, or the standards mentioned there. So was there anything?
I feel like those use standards are,
They're okay?
personally,
Okay.
it's okay with me.
Okay.
And then 5, this is establishing the parking requirement. Again, that's 1 per 300 square feet gross floor area for retail. And then for the manufacturing space component, it would be 1 parking space for every 1,500 square feet.
Okay.
And the last one is just making reference to the nuisance ordinance, chapter 46, so no change there.
Based on your list and our feedback to it, do you feel comfortable, would your end feel comfortable proceeding with a public hearing?
Yes.
Which would be in about 30 days or 28 days or whatever,
Sure.
at our next meeting.
So you would establish the public hearing tonight because the requirement is for a notification period of 15 days.
Right.
Mhm.
So that notification would be published And then in response, the public hearing would be heard or can be heard on the September meeting date.
And so what that means really, though, is that you're required to complete the newest draft before
Yes.
15 days
Yes.
from that meeting?
Yep, that draft will be updated, and then it will be accompanied by the
So you'd have
notification.
at most 13 days?
Yeah,
If I
I can
read
make
it
the
right.
change tomorrow.
Okay.
And we can
Got it.
notify as soon as
Okay.
possible.
Making
Yep.
sure, making
Yep.
sense.
Yep.
Okay. So, is there any discussion at the dais about concerns over hosting this public hearing in September?
I'm not concerned.
No, I'm not concerned.
It doesn't sound like it. All right, so perhaps I'll take a motion then to set a public hearing for our, let me pull the name of this thing up so I don't fudge it.
The question, I do have one
Please,
question.
yeah.
Are we changing the date for September, or are we changing the date for
We can't,
October?
because we don't have it on the agenda for tonight to change it.
We can
Right.
put it on the agenda for the September meeting that we can discuss it. You do not have to make a change at that meeting.
Okay,
We would just discuss it. If you do decide to do it, you do it in September.
got it.
Okay. So, Attorney Baker, please tell me if I'm asking for this motion in the wrong way, but I'll seek a motion to host a public hearing at our September 15th meeting. That's the right date, right?
I guess September
Uh,
18th.
I'm sorry?
September 18th, I believe.
15th.
Nah, that's,
Oh,
September 18th is my birthday.
That's
I know that's a Friday. My birthday always seems like
Today's
it's on a
the 18th,
Monday, so
there we
when it's
go.
on a Friday, I know it. I'll take a motion to host a public hearing at our September 15th meeting on the topic of a zoning amendments related to artisan manufacturing.
So moved.
Seconded.
There's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, we will set a public hearing for our September 15th hearing on the topic of a zoning amendment related to artisan manufacturing. Okay, all right, moving right along. To agenda item 8A, special land use application, 28939 Southfield Road. I will throw to Janet, presumably,
I will
on the
start
topic.
it off. and I
Before we
know-
jump into this,
Yes.
Please.
obviously this requires a public hearing. I didn't, I know we discussed it, but I didn't see a notice of public hearing that went out. Was one,
Yes,
Published.
One was sent out,
August 2nd.
yes.
okay, all right. I just, when I looked at it, I didn't see it, so I just wanted to make sure that we did notice it. So after the introduction, Chair Hillman, you'll want to open the public hearing, take any comments, and then close that public hearing.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
we'll take the introduction.
So with this, everybody has at their table, I apologize, it was not included in the board packet, but Giffords-Webster did do a special land use review of what was submitted with the special land use. And I know Eric said that he would cover some of the details that are within that. Within the packet did have the actual special land use. There is history with this property as far as going through that, but I figured we'll capture that during the information. I can fill in any gaps that maybe we might miss, and I'll turn it over to Eric.
Yeah, so thank you, Janet. The city received an application for special land use at an existing property, which is the Exxon mobile gas station, where they're proposing to sell alcoholic beverages on the property. And so looking back at the permitting activity on the site, in July of 2013, the City Council approved a special land use request for the site to operate as a gas station in the commercial vehicular district. And since then, the gas station has operated a retail component, and that since that time, no alcohol sales were included in that. There's no change to this approved site plan that are proposed. We did require the applicant to submit an application that included responses to the criteria for special land use, which we just happened to cover earlier in the PowerPoint presentation. So those are all outlined in the packet here, or within the review letter dated July 13, 2026. So you heard comment from an adjacent property owner expressing concern over what I believe was criteria number 8, a demonstrated need within the community. But I believe the applicant may be here to discuss the reasons behind proposing the special land use. One other thing to note would be the proposed hours of operation are in excess of what's allowed per ordinance. So if the Planning Commission was to entertain approval of the special land use and the applicant was to keep the proposed hours of operation, that would require a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I have a question. Just to be sure, it sounds like you're describing 2 changes to the plan for what they're allowed to do. One is stay open longer, and one is sell alcohol when they're currently not allowed to sell alcohol.
So the only thing that's before this body is the sale of alcohol, the amendment to the special land use. The extending the hours requires zoning board of appeals approval because it is in our zoning ordinance. That,
Which is not us.
That is
Correct.
not us, that's city council.
Thanks.
Eric, you mentioned that the property owner may be present. Is the property owner in fact present?
I don't think,
Adjacent?
no,
Not,
I don't think they are.
yeah, I don't think the applicant is present. Unless it was one of you 3, which would be surprising to me, but I don't think it is. All right. I'm sorry, was there any more introduction?
No, that was it. If there's any questions on the review letter, I'd be happy to discuss that with you.
What are the normal hours?
7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
7 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
To Attorney Baker's point, the hours of operation aren't pertinent to our discussion tonight, however, right?
Tells me what
Okay.
they want to do.
Sure. So without the property owner here, I suppose we're left to discuss this based on what's been presented to us, not only in the letter prepared by Giffords Webster, but also the application for special land use that the owner submitted. Independent of the public comment we heard earlier, I also have circled on this letter here demonstrated need. And I'm curious how the applicant, if not here tonight to demonstrate that need, has done that beyond submitting this application by way of writing the words convenience store, including the sale of alcoholic beverages. How has that need been demonstrated?
What you will find in response to that is what's written in their application, which I think was included in the packet.
Correct. We had asked, there's 8 criteria within section 6.2.10, A through H, and they were responding to each one of those.
I'm sorry, can you, on the application for special land use itself, can you point me to that section?
I should have brought the marked up copy.
I think it's page 27 of your packet is the response.
Page 15?
27 of the packet.
I think it's where they respond.
While we look,
They've taken, yeah.
Attorney Baker,
Is that it?
Yeah,
If
so these are their responses.
they are turned down
Page
here
26.
tonight for not showing up and defending themselves, would they be able to make a new application?
This, regardless of whether this body recommends approval or recommends denial of this application, it still goes to city council.
Oh, okay.
So they can choose to come to city council. And so just a little more history on this property, I know it was alluded to in reference. In 2012, they acquired this, Lathrup Village Convenience acquired this fuel station and began selling beer and wine without approval from the city. City issued a show cause notice as we discussed, and when they received that, they filed an application for amended special land use to include the sale of beer and wine as well as propane, as well as change the hours. Planning Commission at the time, although questioned and had reservation about an actual demonstration of need, because again, that's a prerequisite for evaluation. So you have to demonstrate the need, and then upon demonstration of need, then you can evaluate the remaining criteria of the special land use. Even though the Planning Commission questioned whether or not they met that standard, they did recommend approval to City Council, and City Council did not agree with their recommendation. They approved the propane sales, but they did not approve the sale of beer and wine in 2013. So,
Was any reason given, or does that not how that works?
well, they didn't meet the, City Council didn't feel that they met the need for the demonstration of the need. So that was, that language actually appeared in our ordinance after the city went through litigation with a different property applicant south of 11 Mile that was trying to turn a building into a liquor store, that they were denied based on the city's determination that they failed to demonstrate a quantifiable need for that use within the community.
So they sued?
So then they sued, and then that language, that determination standard was actually upheld by the Oakland County Circuit Court, and so then it became a part of our ordinance based on that. And so
Sure.
moving forward from there, yeah, it's things that Mr. Davish pointed out, proximity to other locations that provide similar services. There was a former resident, Tom Bainbridge, who had a map that he would bring to every public hearing that depicted all of the establishments within a 2.5 mile radius that sold beer, wine, and packaged liquor, to illustrate a point that the market was already saturated. So
Sure.
those are, again, it's unfortunate that the applicant chose not to appear this evening because they would potentially be able to address some of these questions directly. It's really not, it's not appropriate for myself or anybody from city staff to make their case for them. So.
Sure. So I'm on page 27 of the agenda packet. I'm looking at letter H. Is that their expression of their demonstration of need?
That is correct.
Okay. I want to read this aloud just so people can, who may not be looking at the agenda packet, can hear it. So their demonstration of need is as follows. The proposed sale of packaged alcoholic beverages will allow customers to purchase beer, wine, and other packaged alcoholic beverages along with other everyday items in a single trip. Selling these products is a common feature of convenience stores and is consistent with customer expectations. The proposed use will provide an additional service to customers while remaining compatible with the existing commercial uses in the area. The applicant will comply with all applicable requirements of the Michigan Liquor Commission and Chapter 18, Article 3 of the Lathrup Village Code of Ordinances. I personally happen to agree with all of that, except I don't know how that is demonstrating need. I think all of those are true statements. I don't know how it's a demonstration of need.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Chairman Pullman. I feel like a demonstration of need would be some metric that would articulate either high demand that isn't being met by similar businesses that are already in the area, or some other like measurable criteria other than just this is a convenience store. It wants to provide an additional convenience, especially when in that specific area there's already a way to acquire that less than 100 feet away. To me, this is not about a competition. It's about just demonstrating need. The other thing, and I know dissimilar businesses, but when the city council approved the ordinance language for short-term property rentals, like Airbnbs, they included language that restricts the proximity of businesses like that to each other to try and distribute the delivery of that service to broader areas inside the city. I think we did similar things with the language that was approved for the ordinances related to cannabis businesses, which ultimately those businesses were not approved to be in the city, but when the city was actually putting together ordinances to control how that might be implemented, proximity rules were in place in those ordinances as well. I don't believe that we have proximity language in our ordinances relative to packaged liquor businesses.
We do not, no.
Yeah. But it seems like the the direction that this council has provided historically around other types of businesses, even though it's not in the ordinance, like the intention is to distribute services throughout the city.
Sure.
Like
and
we
the-
did with the Bitcoin machines.
Exactly, that's another example.
Sure.
The what
and-
machines?
Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cryptocurrency ATMs,
ATMs.
small box retail, and money
Sure.
service businesses. 3 ordinances we've done in the last 12 months, all have had proximity.
That's right.
So I do have a question. On Greenfield, there's a giant building with 1 billion different jewelers in it. And I remember my dad telling me one day that that was considered actually like,
Direct
s-
competition.
well, but it was also considered a smart way to do things, because if you want jewelry, you go just there, and it's actually better for all of them to be right there. So not all businesses work that way, obviously. And I'm thinking about alcohol, this does not feel exactly the same as that, but I can't figure out why.
Well, beyond it not, I share those feelings, but beyond my feelings, I feel like it is incumbent on the applicant to demonstrate need. And even this, entertaining the idea that perhaps multiple stores selling alcohol in close proximity to each other creates some type of like destinational experience like these jewelry stores feels like we're building a, I know you're not doing this, but it feels like we're building a case to demonstrate need.
That isn't our
really-
responsibility.
That is really not our responsibility.
I see what you're saying,
Sure.
and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Does the city have an available retail sale license for packaged liquor available? Like, we're limited by the state liquor control board, right? on the
We
number of licenses.
do not, we
We do
only
not.
have bistro licenses left, I believe.
Just for bistros?
Yeah, this is a transfer from the city of Troy.
So it doesn't require
It would,
license from the city?
well, no, it does, so it used to be, the procedure flip-flopped. It used to be before an applicant transferred in or got approved for their own license, the city had to approve it first, probably more than 10 years ago now. They changed that, so an applicant can get their license contingent upon city approval. So they would still require, for the transfer, would still have to be approved by city council.
Before the state would issue them?
Yeah, before it could officially become, but that would be addressed, I believe that application will be addressed by city council along with this special land
Yeah,
use.
so there's no restriction on the number of these types of businesses that could be approved by the city?
No, it's just, the only quota system is how many licenses a city has to issue,
Okay.
their own licenses, so to speak, but.
Based on our own ordinances, like? or
No,
is it
that's based on population,
The state dictates
Yeah,
it
Michigan
based on
Liquor
the
Control
population.
Commission,
So I guess that's
determine-
my question, right? Is, under that restriction by the state, does the city have an available?
you can
Package.
have, it's only, the limitation is only on how many licenses you have that you can give out. You can bring a license in from another community, there's no limitation on that. It's just, like I said, that would have to be approved by city council. So you could theoretically have 100 places in Lathrop Village that sell beer and wine, if they all brought in licenses and all got approved. I think we were, originally the quota was for 2, I believe, I could be wrong on that, but,
So is this a case where the applicant is bringing a license from another community
Yes.
into the city?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that.
yeah, I think they got the city of Troy, they.
That is
acquired one,
correct.
so-
Okay, thank you.
So-
I'm just trying to rule that in or out as on top of lack of demonstration of demand or need. So,
So if you go back to the proximity, you have the neighbor, the next door neighbor, that is already a fully established beer, wine, and spirits. You also have Bistro, which is Jaybird's, which is right up the road a piece. You have 11 in Southfield, the BP, which is selling alcohol. And then if you want to just go across into Southfield, you have CVS, Target, and the little liquor store that's right across from the McDonald's. Now, don't ask me how I know where all these places are. But I'm saying we are sort of saturated. So when it comes to number 8, demonstrating a need, I sort of think that there is no need.
doesn't seem to be demonstrated.
Right.
Can I ask one last question? It's actually about number 1. So it talks about reasonable use. And it specifically says it's supposed to not impinge unreasonably on the value or use of nearby properties. The case that the business owners from next door made was that it certainly would impinge upon the value of their business. But I think that's not, is that?
That's more intended for property values.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
That's
again,
the
this
distinction I
is
wanted to know.
this is really an amendment to their existing special land use. So the use itself as a fueling station and convenience store, likely the impact on neighboring property values would not have any real impact if they were to add an additional product for sale.
But reasonable use is about property values and not the value of what's going on in the property is part of what you're saying, I think, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
This is just so similar to the BP gas station, so I don't know if anyone looked through the 26727 Southfield Road, BP gas station, same request from April 16th, 2024, and all of the other items that they had there from that meeting.
In terms of demonstration of need, is that what you're getting at?
Well, I'm saying, you know, if you look at their packet and this packet and, you know, the comments and.
Maybe we can try
What
and
was the
look that.
result with
It
that
was
one?
approved.
It was
It was
approved.
approved, yeah.
When I say similar, I'm saying what you just said about the neighbors is what I was saying.
I see.
But, or what Joe said about the neighbors, whoever mentioned the neighbors, that was the same thing.
What was the date of that?
April 16th, 2024, special land use
Thank you.
before the planning commission.
I believed I joined in May or something to the effect, so Hammond, I think you may be the only one with any collective memory on that meeting. Regardless of I am interested in the proceedings of that meeting generally, but in good faith, I personally could not recommend approval to council based on what I deem a lack of demonstrated need. And unfortunately, the applicant is not here to clarify that for me.
Well,
I
I'm
agree.
also concerned about the fact that there's seems to be a surge of late evening, early morning drinking at or parties producing violence in many locations throughout our area, the metropolitan area. And those late hours seem to be very dangerous hours for alcohol-saturated parties. And so I see no need to create a resource for additional infusion of alcohol into the community as proposed.
And I'm sorry, I'm remiss. I forgot about Kroger this way on 12 Mile. And there's another liquor store this way on 12 Mile, on the one on the east side of Southfield Road, so.
Sure. We did a similar mental exercise when talking about, I forget what we called it officially, but for ease of discussion's sake, dollar stores. And, we were going up Southfield Road to the Southfield Plaza where there's a Dollar Tree. We're going to Evergreen where there's a dollar store by the Kroger. Both of those are outside of our city limits, and neither of those are within 100 yards of another establishment selling similar products. So I also can't, in good faith, with memory of those discussions, suggest something that I think would be even, that seems very contradictory to me. So, any other discussion?
Just as a point of order proceedings, is this intended to be a public hearing on the special land use application?
No,
And if
I
so, do we
mentioned
need
that we should open the public hearing
Yeah.
before the discussion, and we didn't do that.
Oh.
So at this point, you should probably open the public hearing before you proceed with a motion on this item.
Sure, thank you.
Sorry, but good catch, Jason.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I wish I had caught it 30 minutes
So I'll take that advice. I will hereby officially open the public hearing on this discussion. Much like public comments, if you wouldn't mind please approaching the podium and stating your name. You'll have 3 minutes to offer feedback on this proposed special land use.
John Suzanne, West Rainbow Drive. Yeah, I just want, I really support the conversation that you had, and I just want to support the movement that I see towards not recommending this. I feel strongly that there is no need, and also that that it is important that we support the businesses that we have when we have the chance to do it, and show that kind of loyalty to those loyal businesses. But I think they made it easy for you guys because they really didn't even do what was required. So that's my 2 cents, and I hope that you go in the direction that you're headed, looks like. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. That was quick. All right. As a matter of procedure, Attorney Baker, I'm seeking a motion regardless, and that's to either recommend or not recommend this special land use application to council.
Yep, we either recommend approval or not recommend approval to city council.
Okay.
Recommend that city council not approve the special land use. And then
Okay.
you could illustrate the finding of facts that you had as to why they shouldn't.
So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, we're leaning in the direction of not recommending approval to our city council. So I suppose I will seek a motion to not recommend this special land use application to city council for consideration at their September 14th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
That was quick. Is that a
Commissioner
sufficient?
Norman, would you be willing to offer an amendment to establish a rationale as to why?
Due to
i.e.
the
lack of
complete and total lack of demonstration of need.
Thank you. Do you still second?
Second.
All right.
More than Rob, okay.
All right. I have a motion to not approve the special application, the special land use application by way of complete and utter lack of demonstrated need, and it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, we will recommend to council not to approve the special land use application based on a lack of demonstrated need. All right, moving right along. Agenda item 9, general communication. Is there anything from the table?
So also at the table, you do have a copy of permits issued by the DDA district for the past quarter. So we are going to get back into that cadence, which Austin used to provide as far as site development updates. And I'm currently working with Jennifer on that. And for this, it mentions the one that was done for Jay's, as far as the pergola that was being built on the property, which actually looks fabulous right now. And so Jaybird's Grill. And then also, we have, well, I'm doing this backwards, I apologize. So, so that's what we have for that location. And Michigan First Credit Union had an installation of 15 sprinkler heads that were done. And so again, we had 3 permits that were pulled for the work that was done. So again, as we move to next month, you'll see the typical reports that you had with the photo of the property and also the details and where we currently stand with each of the site developments that are coming through.
Very good. Any discussion or questions?
Just a reminder or suggestion, make sure to update the online link
Yes.
for the report that you just mentioned. I understand it's not available this month, it's totally fine. But let's, we'll get in our packet, but it should also be updated on the city's website because there is a link to it on the
Yes.
Planning Commission's page. This report on permits issued for the DDA district is great. Can we get a similar report for the other commercial districts, non-residential districts?
Okay.
Still working out the bugs in BSNA, so.
I got you. No, this is great. I don't know if there are any permit applications for the other non-residential districts, but it would be interesting information for the planning commission to have.
Yep,
Sure. And
absolutely.
in addition to updating the online available resources to include this report, we should do the same just for record-keeping sake and for public-facing access sake, this document that I don't believe is part of it as well. Any other matters of general communication? All right. Hearing none, we'll move along to agenda item 10, another opportunity for public comment. If you have inclination to comment again, please approach the podium. You'll have 3 minutes, and please make sure to state your name, even if we know who you are. Thank you.
Yeah, it's Jonathan Terra. And I have some suggested opportunities for all present for further education, research, and networking regarding the initiatives toward makerspaces and light manufacturing. Some things that are coming up very soon. September is Detroit Month of Design. I just checked their website. There are at least 84 events during the month of September, including, for example, demonstrations of 3D printing, some hoopla events. I'm not promising you might meet Tony Hawk on the 3rd, but I give it a 0.51. The opening of a river path that I'm not aware of what that is, but in the little village area where coincidentally Tony Hawk is opening a skate park and a restaurant next year. And there will be an event that's the opening event on the 3rd, and there will be an event at Michigan Central, and events all over the place. That's one. And so I would suggest DetroitMonthOfDesign.org if you're interested in that and getting involved in any of those opportunities. I would be shocked if there wasn't at least one session about doing this kind of thing in your city, because I have in the past attended events about city design, and it impinges on this. The other event coming up, which is kind of a fun thing, where you might in fact meet some of your prospects, is the Funky Ferndale Art Fair coming up September 25th to 27th. Half of it, and I can't never remember which side of Woodward is which, but one side of Woodward is an art fair with a juried art fair. The other side of Woodward is a maker fair where you will be able to meet a lot of these small manufacturers and artisans as a good place to meet those people and talk to them and see what their needs are. And then the last opportunity that I'm aware of is January 14th. It is the this year's one day this year, the Detroit Auto Show Media and Industry Day. It's you don't have to be in the industry and you don't have to be media. You just have to pay a little higher ticket. This year it's $65. Or 55, 65, something like that. Last year it was 2 days. There are a lot of startup companies that are there that day only. It's a separate show from the auto show, but you get admission to that. You can go from booth to booth and talk to CEOs of little companies that are involved in design and light manufacturing, they're here to pitch the auto industries, and those little companies that are coming from all over the world might need a home here.
Appreciate it.
So those are the 3 things that I know of.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any other public comment? As Mr. Suzanis is approaching the podium, it's the west side of Woodward is the juried art fair. The east side of Woodward is the funkier. Well, it's actually, the Funky Ferndale Art Fair is on the west side of Woodward. I believe it's, I forget, something else, yeah, on the east side. I like both sides.
take
Please.
long enough?
Sure, thank you.
Thanks. John Susanna's speaking again. I want to start just by please asking anybody from Giffords Webster making a presentation at this commission or for the city council, if you can get those presentations into the administrator in time to be included in the packet, I think we would appreciate that a lot, and so would the public, because we don't have the time to look at that until it's broadcast. Secondly, you can easily go online. Yeah, you know, I mean, we can argue about whether we like AI or not, but you can ask AI to tell you all the cities that have similar ordinances and to point you to them, and you can get to them rather quickly. I think they'd bear some looking at as we look at final language for any ordinance, but this one in particular. Good rule writing is really hard, which is why I think it's absolutely makes sense to go into special use first, so that you can hone that rule over time. But I do think that the rule you write will inform the business plans that are submitted. So I think it's important that you try to be specific right off the bat so that you get the kind of businesses, and it will be helpful to the businesses as well. I don't think examples serve any purpose. I think they could be good in your marketing materials, which is something Commissioner Hillman, you suggested in the past, that there's marketing materials and then there's ordinance. I do think exclusions are a good idea. And, you know, I mean, we have the 10 commandments, they're all do nots, and there's only 10 of them. Because if you listed all the do's, it'd take forever. So I think that's something to keep in mind. You know, the idea of 2 tiers, I'm glad that you guys, you know, decided you didn't want that, but I do think there is a place where 2 tiers might be useful. And that would be businesses that locate on the 12-mile versus businesses that locate on Southfield corridor. And because then you could start to talk about maximum size for manufacturing, because they're 2 very different uses, or, you know, size buildings, neighborhoods, et cetera. So there might be a way you could say maximum amount of manufacturing space in the office corridor would qualify as artisanal manufacturing. That's all I had on that. And then just 2 quick things that you guys have talked about in the past that I'd like to just put out there for you. One is, I don't see any reason not to redistrict that the residential houses that are around the business, you know, the downtown district, back into residential as soon as possible. I don't know what objection anybody would have to that. And then similarly, and this is maybe more controversial, but I at least put in my voice for looking at parks, maybe during the master plan, and looking at giving them a separate designation than the one they have, so that parks are designated as parks and can be treated as a separate item when we talk about policy and other things like that. Right now, it's kind of hard to do because they live in a gray area and with all kinds of openings, you know. So those are my suggestions, so I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, very good. I'll move along. I'll close public comment. Moving along to agenda item 11, other matters for discussion. Anything from the dais or the table? Please.
Yes. Lathrup Village Nature Group, among others, has called attention to the negative effects of excessive light at night on nature. And for my own reasons, I wanted to check my own installation of lighting around the house. I recently tried to even it out and tamp it down a little bit. So I took a walk down the street at 10 o'clock or after 10 down near to Southfield, and I was startled by the brilliance of lighting around the office buildings on this side of the street, the 2 blocks of office buildings, both on the front and the back. And I'm just wondering if there is any minimum or maximum rules that they are supposed to be following. I know new lighting has been put in, and it is really brilliant. And it's got to go back several lots on the alley side. The front side, I can't really quarrel about it if it's a part of their advertising or their presence, but certainly wanted to ask about the other side.
There should, yeah, there's lighting standards,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So I don't know to the extent that the requirements are for lighting to stay within the property and not extend past the property line. But if it was a new application with new lighting that we were looking at, then a lighting plan would have to be included within that to demonstrate that the foot candles and the lighting projection would not extend past the property line, especially as it relates to adjacent residential parcels.
To that point as well, not to call them out on it, but they have complied for the most part. When Steve was here as our code enforcement officer, he went after Holbrook Auto because when they started, they had what was considered a nuisance with their lighting that could be seen on the other side of 696. So we were not aware of it until a resident had brought it to our attention, because we're obviously not here late, today notwithstanding, but we're not here late at night, so we don't know that stuff. These things are not known to us unless someone directly reports it to us. So if we know, we can take action, but we would need, some kind of picture example like what was provided with Holbrook, and then they were able to amend accordingly.
And this is something that Mayor Cantor, as long as he's been involved with the city, has been on lighting and patrolling, and he's asked, and I believe the administrator has indicated that they would make the request, but to have the code enforcement officer maybe flex their schedule and drive through at night just to see the lighting, because it is an issue that is ongoing. To Eric's point, yeah, the lighting has to be contained on the property. Those perimeter strip window lighting, they have a limit of, it's 0.3 foot candles at the property line. So if you can see it from 696 Holbrook, clearly they would have exceeded 0.3 foot candles. But yeah, it's an enforcement issue of the current ordinances.
So whether as a commissioner or a private resident of Lathrup Village, do you have a recommendation for how Dennis or anybody else might report this to you? Do you prefer see-click-fix, an email?
See-click-fix would work. You can also email directly to us. See-click-fix may get you a bit more of a faster response, emailing us directly when, our new code enforcement officer is getting 25 emails a day and he's not here every day.
Sure.
So that may get lost in the weeds. So I would recommend see-click-fix. It gives us a little bit more organization.
Sure. But it does sound like we have ordinances in place.
Yep.
It's just a matter of enforcing them.
Yep.
Unfortunately, enforcement goes beyond the control of this dais and lands it to a code enforcer's plate. So, Dennis, as an aside, are you familiar with see-click-fix and have you utilized it before?
Yes, I use it in Detroit.
So, see-click-fix is a resource that this community and others provides to do things like, I very recently used it to snap a photo of a stop sign that obviously somebody smashed into because it's kind of at 45 degrees. So whether it's a 45-degree stop sign or excessive lighting, it's a way of directly communicating with code enforcement about known, obvious things like that stuff that you might want addressed.
It also goes beyond code enforcement too, because an issue like that would go to DPW for them to
there you go.
fix.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
it goes beyond just one department. It hits multiple within City Hall.
Sure.
And it's intended to create a ticket, a work ticket.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any other matters for discussion? All right. Seeing none, I'll move along to agenda item 12 and take a motion to adjourn, please.
I make the motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right. I think that might be your first second.
My second.
Second. Got it. All right. We've had a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.